What's happening, people? Welcome to another episode of Natty News Daily. We've got a very special guest on, Mr. Bryan Leong, very excited to say this to you, my friend, new WNBF Pro, won his pro card at the Muscle Mayhem was it last weekend or are we 2 weeks now?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, yeah. So Bryan's coached under Alberto Nunez, which I'm sure most of you listening know who Berto is, under 3DMJ. And, we were just saying before we come on air that I hadn't really known of Bryan up until recently when Berto started kind of sharing this insane bodybuilder coming to do the Muscle Mayhem. So I think in this episode, we'll kind of dive into Bryan's history within the sport all the way up to where we're at now, becoming a new pro. And then we actually had some conversation behind the scenes of what he's got planned for next. But we'll talk about that a little bit too. So Bryan, welcome to Natty News, my friend.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh,
really happy.
Appreciate it. Random question. Are you back home now?
Yeah. So I flew straight back to Hong Kong 2 days after the show. That wasn't ideal, but then I got work. So that was like another 22 hours of commute back home.
Wow.
So carry my sword with me.
Nice.
And here I am in Hong Kong.
So I had a question on that. How was that whole process? So I've traveled. Actually, I haven't traveled 22 hours, but I flew to Spain to compete once, and that was challenging. Yeah. So how was your whole peaking process and the travel? Like, how far out from the show did you come over? Because you were here for a while.
Yeah, so I would say I'm still quite a type A person. So I was kind of expecting water retention, jet lagging, all of that. So yeah. I flew in probably 8 days or 9 days before the show, fully prepared that I was going to look a complete mess when I arrived Fort Collins. Yeah, and I didn't go straight to Sacramento for the show. I went to Fort Collins to meet Berto first, just so that he could assess me in person.
Yep.
So the entire commute was 23 hours, and obviously COVID played a part there with all the flights delay and cancellation. So I didn't go straight from Hong Kong to Denver. I had to go from Hong Kong to South Korea to Vancouver, and then to Denver. Obviously, a little bit of layover here and there. So even a week before the flight, I asked Berto, what should I do? What should I eat to kind of minimize all the effects? And he just said, drink tons of water. Yeah. And you'll be good. And I said, what about steps, man? I'm still doing 10Ks, right? And he said, there's no way you can do 10Ks on a plane. Just rest and chill. All the fat loss are done. So I booked a seat. That's an emergency seat. So I could have plenty of leg room. Yeah. And the toilet is actually right in front of me. So I was drinking 10 liters of water and probably visited the toilet 20 times during the whole flight. And when I arrived Denver, he did a little assessment. He said, actually, you're all right. You didn't hold any water. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's perfect. So it wasn't ideal, but it worked out. Yeah.
Where there's a will, there's a way, right? I
I
remember on my peak week, I was drinking 10 liters of water, and that was rough, just being under normal living circumstances, much less on a plane.
Yeah.
What was your longest stretch of flying?
It's probably this one.
No, but total, what was the longest flight you were in there?
So it's definitely from South Korea to Vancouver. So that was 10 hours.
Wow.
Yes, it's not too bad though.
You have a lot of jerky and stuff packed, or did you have you pack your meals?
He asked me to do rice cakes and whey protein. But I did cream of rice and whey protein, so it's something that's easily digestible, and just something I've been having throughout the whole prep.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, let's go back a little bit. How long have you been in the bodybuilding game, and how old are you now?
I'm 27 now. Okay. I would say I started exercising, so not actually bodybuilding, since I was 16 years old in high school.
Yep.
So my buddy and I, we saw that in our school, there was a gym there with minimal equipment. So we just started doing some bodyweight pull-ups and a little bit of chest press here and there. And then we carried on that, and I started focusing more a little on powerlifting. Okay. Because that was the hype at the time, with the Omar Esau and Elliot Hall, so people like that. So did that, focused that on for a couple of years. And I would say naturally I'm pretty strong on the squat. So that was my main focus. And my main goal was to squat 500. I did that a couple of years back. And then I think I really focused on bodybuilding starting from 2016.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a good little side note from the podcast we did with Revive, talking about like social media and all this kind of stuff, because everybody's seeing you now, and seeing your overnight success and how do you do it, blah blah blah, and you know, here you are basically saying you've been doing this for a decade already. So for those listening, that's important take home note. So then when did you get into competing?
So it's around 2016 that I met a buddy in my local gym. He's called Julian. And I found out he's being coached by Alberto Nunez, who I've been following for a couple of years then.
Yep.
So and he said, oh dude, you got huge potential in this game, so why don't I line you up with Berto and to see what's going to happen next. So I said I'm keen, because I just really want to meet the guy. And and he got me in connection with him, and then he said, dude, let's see about prepping a show. So I did my first ever comp in 2017. It's a local NPC show, so I just did men's physique because I didn't know anything at that moment. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to see if I was going to look semi-decent after prep. So yeah, that's how I got started with.
You didn't assume you'd be a pro in your first show?
No.
Good.
No, even like this year, I didn't think that I was going to turn pro, but
again,
thank God it turned out my way.
For those listening, another important take-home note: don't assume you're the best in the world when you do one show. Okay, so did men's physique. First experience was good.
Yeah. Didn't like the posing though, because it's mostly just front and back. But I enjoyed the whole process. I enjoyed picking the board shorts, I guess. And also how systematic it was with the prep side of things. So yeah, kind of fell in love with the game. And
you like that structure, the structure of things, and
because like before that, I would say I didn't know what I was doing really. I mean, there's so many quote unquote methods or approaches out there, right? You have the high intensity guy, you have the high volume guy, and with the diet you have the traditional bro like meal plan way, and then you have like the new macros. So I was kind of like trying all of them, but I didn't know what works and what doesn't. Right. So with Bert's guidance, it made so much sense with everything, and then I could just know that what I should be following and after.
Yeah, for sure. You've been working with him since then?
No. So after that competition, I kind of stopped, just so with his approach, I kind of want to see what works for me, like kind of trial and error by myself.
Yeah.
And then we still kept in contact, and actually got him to fly over with Eric Helms in 2019 to Hong Kong to do a seminar. Yeah, so we still kept in close contact, and then I was sending him some physique updates here and there with my bulking.
Yep.
And about 2020 to 2021, I started having this thought of like, I probably should compete again, but this time in bodybuilding. So yeah, we started off from there, and we've been planning on doing a mayhem since. Yeah.
So this was only your second show?
Second. I did a local show before the mayhem, like 6 weeks before the mayhem, and that was just to warm up, just to see if I'm in a decent shape. for mayhem.
Yeah. Wow, that's impressive, man. Good for you.
And so, what was your contest weight, and what weight were you kind of spending most of that time between 2017 and 2022?
Contest weight, you mean this time or 2017?
Contest weight 2022, and then how much heavier were you throughout your off season?
So I think my stage weight was 150. I mean, I was 149 before flying over to Sacramento. But I think after eating up a little bit, I gained a little more weight, but I didn't have access to a scale then. So I would say I was about 150. And I think most of the off season, I was hovering around 175 to 185.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your training like over that period? Like, how did you structure things? Did you have any specifics, or was it?
Yeah, because I really wanted to try out the high intensity approach, because that's how I liked to train. Like regardless of whether it's effective or not, I like going into the gym with my head fully dialed in for minimal amount of sets, and to see how much I can get away with the least amount of work possible, just to kind of focus on the quality. So I was, I'm still am a big fan of like AJ Morris or like JP with those intensity approaches. So I try to be as I try to have as much of a structure as possible with the routine. And I kind of focus on my weak area, which I thought at the time would be my back and my legs, and just training around them. So I would have 2 sets on each exercise. One set would be a heavier weight with around 6 to 8 reps. And the second set will be around 12 to 15 or 15 to 20, depends on the exercise. And I've seen great progress from that. I was PRing week after week. But then at one point, I kind of noticed that the sets were not standardized anymore. So I was constantly focusing on chasing PRs in terms of numbers week after week, but then the execution started to change. And also, as Berto pointed out when I visited him, that I started to cluster way more than I should have been.
And what do you mean by that?
So example would be, so let's say on a hack squat, the first week I would do 8 continuous reps, and then I would do 2 reps at the top, and I would do 2 more, and that would be my set. And then the next week I would like to do more than 10 reps. So it would be like my head, I want to do 11 or 12. But then the way I executed it would be, I would do 5, I'll rest, I'll do 3, I'll do 2, I'll do 2.
Okay.
So the entire thing, I would drag it on way too much and make it into sort of like a rest pause set. Instead of what I was doing the week before. So it technically is a PR, but then I think in terms of stimulus, it's kind of different.
One way to PR is to do something different every time you go in the gym.
Just do like 20 singles.
Pretty much. So fast forward to now, you do the Muscle Mayhem. Obviously the result was what we wanted, right? WNBF Pro. Gets a sword to fly back home with. How was that, by the way? Was that like, did they question you at like Border Patrol or anything?
So I was pretty cautious about how to handle it, because it's a sword, but it's kind of just like a trophy. So when I arrived the counter, I asked them if there's any possible way for them to put on like a fragile sticker on it. Because I said, that itself is more valuable than my other luggages.
Exactly.
And then they said, we don't do that here. But then they asked me to go to security to see if they would clear it. I was like, why? Because I'm checking it in. It should be okay, right?
I'm not hiding it.
They thought that I was going to bring the sword on the plane just so I can kind of protect it with me. And I said, no, that's not what I'm going to do. But thanks for the advice. So I checked that in, and it's all right.
That's good. I always wondered that, because there's a couple of shows, like when I was mapping out my season, that like one of the shows, I think it was in like Buffalo or something, New York, they had like a sword as a trophy, and I was like, man, that would be so cool. But I was like, how am I going to get home with a sword?
It would be harder to get the helmet from the New York show, right? Because it's so big in size.
One of my clients last weekend won an axe. That was pretty cool.
Well, in hindsight, I should have just DHL it, but I wanted it with me.
Oh, for sure. I don't blame you. So how was the Mayhem experience?
Oh, it's super nice, man. Everyone was so welcoming. So with the local shows I did, people could be a little bit hostile. I mean, I don't think they meant it that way, but then you know that backstage they're kind of like having the pre-contest worry or whatever. They just look a bit mean. But then in Mayhem, so first off, I have the whole 3DMJ crew with me. That itself is already the best experience ever. Sure. And also I got to talk to everyone in my class, and also basically all the competitors, and they're just really nice. And also I got to meet people that I've been following on social media for years, and they're coming up to me and like, oh dude, you're having such great physique. I was like, damn.
It's crazy, you know, like that's something that like this season for me meant a lot. Was like I had just met James and Dan that I do this podcast with, right, for the first time, and we've been talking almost daily for like 2.5 years, and I'd never met them. So like those things at shows, I think people really underappreciate what that does for our culture and our world, is when you have those people that you know you've spoken with or talked to and that kind of stuff, because bodybuilding is so small, right? Like you get to know a lot, especially the natural community. Like I think it's really pretty tight knit, to be honest, and it's as much as there's so many athletes now getting into it, like kind of everybody knows everybody almost, in a sense. So to actually meet people in person, you know, for yourself, right, flying across the world basically, that's cool.
And I didn't know what to expect, because I was flying out alone, so I was expecting the worst, with like delayed schedule with the show, and then people just not being as welcoming as I thought. But then it turned out that it's just the complete opposite, and I was so glad that it turned out that way.
Especially, I mean, not to blow smoke for the WNBF, but they do a good job at that, right? Like they're like any WNBF show I've done, I mean, Bob and Tina that run the joint, they're awesome people, right? So everybody's just really kind, which is nice.
And I had an awesome chat with them the day before when I did the polygraph test. And they were quite fascinated. Like, you came all the way from Hong Kong? And I was like, yeah, I did.
Oh, that's wicked, man. So you are post show now. What's been the post show process? How have you felt with that?
So as usual, after the show, I had a big meal with the crew. And so at that point, I was dealing with some severe hunger issues, which I never thought would have happened.
Right.
Because right after the first local show, I didn't have this issue at all. I was dead set on the Mayhem. So I guess with the momentum that I was pretty focused with the physique instead of eating.
For sure.
But
it's amazing how
a week before.
I was to say, it's amazing how psychological it is with, like, you have blinders on and then you take the blinders off and you're like, oh my God, I can just destroy food.
So I would say a week or 2 weeks before Mayhem, I started experiencing the hunger issues to a point that I just knew that it was an issue. So like I would have refeeds day, and then the whole day I wouldn't want to talk to anybody, because I just wanted to savor every bite of that high carb meal. And then anybody who talked to me during that point would be like, you're interrupting the best moment of my life right now. So that's kind of the issue. And I felt like I was never satisfied with the amount of food I was having. So right after the show, I didn't go too crazy. I mean, I hit the sushi joint with the crew, and then obviously BJ's after, which is like the Mayhem tradition. And I had 2 more days of just eating whatever I want. Still not ridiculous amount of quantity, but just being a normal person. And after that, I was kind of like, okay, I'm done. I don't want this anymore. I quite enjoy keeping the look that I achieved after working out for like 7 months. So I was telling Berto that so I'm still having a little bit of hunger issues. I couldn't stop snacking, but I'm ready to go back to more structure. But then Berto just said, this phase, it kills careers, because you're trying to maintain something that you shouldn't be maintaining. And the goal right now, if you want to compete in 2 years, is to get you healthy again.
Get back to normal.
Be in a good place to build muscle.
Yep.
So the more you kind of hold on to this, the more you try just delay in progress. So we kind of had a long chat about this. And I also talked to the client that he prepped last year, Dirk from Germany, if you remember him.
Oh yeah.
Just to see, like, because he is a guy he has like glutathions all year round.
Yeah, he's
and
he's
even
very
him,
lean.
he struggled with this as well. So Berto had to rush him out of that stage as fast as possible. So I was kind of asking him, like, how did you deal with it mentally? But then he just said that it's just not a good place for you to be in if you want to build muscle. So get out and think about yourself as a performance athlete instead of a pretty boy.
Yep.
So
yeah, I've been
interesting. Eating.
Oh, go ahead, man.
Oh no, yeah. So instead of trying to fight it, I just started eating 4,500 calories a day, and I gained about 10 pounds in 2 weeks already. Yeah.
And that's not even like that insane. Like, people gain 20 pounds in 6 days.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. I mean, the post show is such a battle for everybody, right? Like, you think, you've got it under control and you're good, right? But coming out of my season, like, I was pretty run down by the end of it. Like, it was all for a good purpose. Like, people have asked, do you feel like you pushed too hard? And definitely not. But with that comes, the hunger and the fatigue and the negative effects from prep, right? And that was the same thing when I was like, with Cliff and I was like, let's get me back to normal pretty damn quick. Which for me, like, once I got back up to like around 170, so that was like 15 to 20 pounds. And I did that quick, like within probably like 15 days. But like, as quick as I gained the weight, like almost all prep effects like dissipated immediately. Like, it was the fastest I've recovered, I think, from prep. And like Dan and I have talked about this too. Like, you think you feel better, but you only continue to feel better. And now I'm at that point. But even with that, that 15 pounds of just getting back to where my body likes to just hang out, like, sleep improved like immediately. Food focus obviously after prep was there, but it kind of spiked and come down pretty rapidly once I was just allowing my body to get back to like a homeostatic state versus being run to the ground.
Yeah, and I think the main thing is I forgot what being normal was like.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Yeah,
sure.
It's one of those things like with prep,
before
it
the
like
show,
degrades slowly.
Yeah.
I was saying it just degrades slowly in prep, and you kind of notice it, but it kind of happens like slowly, and then coming out. You can explain, I'm sure.
What
we lose you?
Say? No, what was I just gonna say?
Did we lose Brian?
Oh no.
Oh, sorry. Oh, my connection got a bit.
Yep. I thought you went out. Yep.
No, I'm right.
So how would you feel now?
Way better. So with the gym performance, that's the first thing I noticed. But before competing, I was trying really hard to hold on to the numbers, the muscles. But now everything just clicks after like a set of warm up, and I feel like I could finally push weights again.
Yeah.
So feeling good. Sleeping is way better. And just my overall attitude with people just went back to normal.
I'm just
a normal guy again, instead of being all like,
like, leave me alone. All the time.
Exactly. Yeah. Or like I have to fit in that amount of steps before every meal, that kind of structure thing. And now it's just kind of live my life more. Instead of just doing straight bodybuilding.
Yep. And it's productive, right? That's something that like one thing that Cliff explained to me. He's like, bodybuilding for like the best athletes is like a dimmer switch. He's like, it's never off, but you turn it down from time to time. On prep, you slowly start cranking it up. In the off season, you have that room to dial it back, where, I think all of us are going to live the bodybuilding lifestyle, but there will be room for normality. Is that the word? Normality? Yeah.
Yeah.
And not being so like hyper focused on it, right? Like, you know, we went
and one thing I learned from Berto this prep is that there are things that matter, and there are things that you think you're maximizing the efficiency, but actually you're just trying to make your life harder than it should be.
Yeah.
So
do you have an example of that
with regards to like food choices or training time? Hello, sorry.
I can hear you. I was asking for an example. So you were getting into it. You answered my question.
Yeah, okay. So I firmly believe, and I'm still trying to ask Boda about this, but so before competing, I was quite cautious about my food choices and also how I react with certain food. And so I was sticking with like chicken, eggs, white rice, and fruit. And these are basically my whole diet. And I was quite cautious about, also I need to get the extra large egg instead of the large one, or like from which sources. Yeah. And to me, mentally it's better because I'm checking the boxes. So even though you're telling me that, oh, you can have a piece of salmon instead of eggs, but then to me, like, oh, what about if next piece of salmon has a different fat content than this one? So should I lock that in? How do I assess it? And mentally, it would drive me crazy. And I really believe that stress is stress. And if you don't believe it and you overthink it after doing it, and if you do it for a prolonged period of time, your physique will show with how much stress you're handling. So to me, I was quite dead set on having everything to be perfect. But then what telling me when I arrived is it doesn't really matter. Just focus on what I'm telling you to do. And the prime example was that after the long flight, so that was with the time difference of 26-hour day, and I already finished all my macros like 24 hours in. So I was fasting, and Berto looked at me and said, "How you feel?" And I said, "Really hungry." And then he said, "Okay, let's go for Subway." And I was like, wait, what? Yeah. He said, yeah, we got some good food. I'll take care of you. Yeah.
It's funny. Your relationship with Berto sounds very similar to mine with Cliff, in that he really educated you and was a mentor along with a coach, right? Like, I think he's like really leveled up your mindset towards the sport. I very can relate to a lot of things you're saying, where you kind of get this like micromanage every little thing, and you know, every drop of water needs to be accounted for, and I got to train at the same time, and I got to eat at the same exact minute. And I remember asking Cliff questions, and he'd be like, "Whatever you want, man." And I'm like, yeah, you know, it doesn't matter that much in the grand scheme of things. You know, if you're doing the big things perfectly, the little things maybe don't matter as much, right? And they can kind of add up to that stress and take away from the enjoyment of things and stuff. And you know, he always said, you know, the best athletes I've ever worked with, and Cliff's worked with, you know, some of the best in the world, and he's like, they very much understand the balance side of the sport, which not a lot of people like to talk about.
Yeah And if you want to do it for a long period of time, you got to figure out a way to fit bodybuilding into your normal life.
100%. So we've got a couple minutes left, man. What's the plan now? So you're post Mayhem. What's the lineup in the future?
So we will be going into a gaining phase for as long as possible. So probably I'll go up to no more than 185 pounds. And then we'll do a mini cut at one point, and then we'll drop to 165. That's what Berto is telling me. We're going to stay there for a couple of months, and next time we'll start at 165, and we'll have a 20-week prep instead of a 28 that we did this prep. Right. So I will compete again in 2 years, hopefully qualify for the Worlds and see how it goes.
That's wicked.
Awesome.
That's sweet, man. I really look forward to watching that because I think you're gonna do some good things.
Thanks, man.
What physique wise, before we go, is there anything that you guys noted that maybe needs some more attention, or is it just bring everything up?
So the feedback I got from the judges are bring my quads up a little bit more, so get wider in a sense. Sure. And Berto wants me to have bigger arms. So these two will be my main focus for the off season, and everything apart from these will take care of themselves, I guess.
Yeah. Well, he's brought his arms up, so you're learning from someone that knows what to do.
Yeah, a lot of intensity techniques.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Dan, is there anything else you've got for the man?
Nothing further that comes immediately to mind. Appreciate you coming on, Brian, and negotiating the time difference and taking time on a pretty short notice for us.
Oh, glad we could do
it. No. Yeah, you guys fit my schedule in, so that's perfect.
Perfect. So, man, if people want to follow along, where do they best find you?
On Instagram, the account name is BryanKBLeong. So you can send me a DM there, and I'll reply as fast as possible.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, if you guys enjoyed the episode, let us know. Give it a like, of course, and give Brian a follow on Instagram. Stay up to date with his journey as he sounds like he's chasing down hitting up the world stage in a couple of years. So that'll be fun to watch. So thank you again for coming on, man. Thanks everybody for watching. Subscribe for future episodes, and we'll see you guys in the next one.